Our
I
next
think
question comes from
yeah.
Prater. How should your NFT investment strategy scale as your bankroll increases? For example, 1F versus 10F versus 100F. How do you make sure you're making good decisions at greater scale?
It's a great question.
It is a great question. I would say first off, it depends on what you want to do, because some people that have 100F kind of want to just stay near there and grow it very slowly, whereas some people have a never-ending pit inside of them that they try to fill with money, and so when they have 100, they want to turn that into 1,000. And so you have to think, like, I think sort of implicitly that they're of the mind that you want to be focusing more on growth at a bankroll of 1F and more at conserving what you have when you have 100 Ethereum. But that is really up to personal preference.
Yeah, no, yeah, that's an excellent point. And a huge part of it is also how much time are you willing to invest into investing, and not that we give investing advice, but into your NFT strategy. And as you grow to say 100 ETH bankroll, if you want to continue in that same sort of like aggressive growth strategy that, say, a smaller bankroll where you mint and flip, 1 or 2 NFTs, it's just going to take more time, because you're just going to be managing more projects. If you think a project is good and you're bullish on it, instead of buying 1, 2, or 3, now for that same sort of reasonable percentage of your bankroll allocation, you're buying 10, 20, 50, 100. And then it takes a lot of time to sell those and sort through them and see what the rare ones are and not. So I think just naturally, partially because of that and partially because of the desire to preserve money and lower risk, as bankrolls go up, the allocation towards blue chips also goes up. And blue chips are just sort of projects that, people are happy to just have and sit on and not really feel the need to actively trade or like wait for a Gary V tweet and sell when it
Right.
it's pumping, because one tweet is not going to significantly change any, even like, say, the Bored Ape Yacht Club. Yes, of course, certain tweets will affect it a little bit, but it's not like
Or Super Bowl stuff is sort of a big thing people are thinking about right now.
Apecoin. But it seems unlikely that, say, Justin Bieber buys an ape. It's not like there are hundreds of people going, all right, I got to get an ape now on FOMO. Like, it's so well established. Whereas if Justin Bieber were to buy a crypto Mori or something, so many people will go crazy. It's like, all right, so he's got apes and crypto Moris, rah, 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 and the market will go nuts. So,
if you think about it in terms of how much F is going to go into the project from the same amount of publicity or whatever. So for instance, again, you say Justin Bieber buys an ape and then Justin Bieber buys a crypto Mori. Let's just assume that would send 100F of random liquidity into that market. In one case, you're going to have literally one floor piece bought, and in another one, you're going to have the 70 cheapest ones listed. That's going to have a very big difference in the project, whereas the first one is just, okay, one crazy eyes ape is off the floor,
How do you make sure you're making good decisions at greater scale is the second part of the question.
This is not a direct answer to that, but while you were answering, it just sort of made me think, in general, you're talking about getting 10, 20, 50 pieces now and stuff. All of this stuff is a lot easier now than it used to be. Like, if you think about what Pranksy was doing like early last year and stuff, like with collection offers and Genie and stuff like that. I think you were actually telling me the other day there's another sweeping product besides
Gem.xyz. It's cheaper, I'm pretty sure.
Better gas efficiency. But yeah, that kind of thing makes it a lot easier to be able to sort of accurately utilize a portfolio of that size without having to spend, without the time scaling up as crazily as you might think it would, and as it used to.
Yeah. Pranksy must have had assistants doing stuff for him, because he was buying thousands of things and listing them, and I don't know, maybe he just did it all manually.
So how do you make sure you're making good decisions at greater scale? I think it's probably similar to doing it at a lower scale. You have to go into it with open eyes and understanding, like, honestly, what are you trying to accomplish? And if you don't know what you're trying to accomplish, it's impossible to judge if you're making good decisions in the first place. So, again, if you're trying to do more conserving and slow growing at a higher scale, you need to be more seriously looking at having not all of your eggs in one basket. We talked about this on maybe the last episode or two ago, but just I had too much of a percentage of my net worth in Yuga Lab stuff, and so I had to sell me. And I had one ape, one mutant, and two dogs, and it was just, all of that was so valuable, and the rest of all of my NFTs was basically only equal or something like that to that value. So it was too much, and so I had to take some off of the table, even though I'm as bullish on that or more than like any other NFT project. It was just too high of a percentage. And so that's the situation where you're kind of, again, as you're scaling up, you're not necessarily trying to maximize the speed of your growth, because you want to care about the downside a little bit more, because losing half of a 1F bankroll is probably going to be something that you can recover from a lot easier than losing half of a 100F bankroll.
Yeah. One more thought I guess I have on this is it's just if you are going for aggressive growth, I guess, it's so much easier for your strategy to be buying into lower price projects rather than tying all of your liquidity up in, say, an ape or a couple of mutants or even Azukis or Cool Cats, or like it's so much more difficult for Cool Cats to go from 10 ETH to 100 ETH floor than for a project that's at 1 ETH to 10 ETH. Just it requires so much more capital, and then 100 to 1,000 is just ludicrous. So it really is just like, sort of
we were just saying with the Justin Bieber example, basically, if you're just kind of thinking about the total liquidity in the market just kind of moving around, you can kind of visualize or understand how much easier it is to see explosive growth in a small project with the same amount of liquidity moving to it as with a project that has a very high floor, or even, so a medium high floor, like we might describe something that's 3F right now or whatever, versus something that's 0.2.
One last thing I think I have to say is that I'm starting to think more and more that as your bankroll grows, the correct strategy for a lot of reasons might just be to find like a small amount of projects that you have a lot of conviction in and go heavy into those, rather than sort of like mid last year, the approach was really spray and pray. You could just mint everything and, most things would go up. And the ones that didn't go up, you'd make enough on the other ones to, well, more than cover your costs. But now there are just so many projects, even so many like half decent projects, that I'm not sure that is the best approach financially speaking, but also like just from a time perspective, just keeping track of all these projects is obviously difficult. But like if you find 3 to 5 projects that you love, buying 20, 30, 50 of them, even at like 0.1, 0.2, 0.3 each, you can put like 10% of your bankroll into Woodies, 10% into MFers, 10% into probably not World of Women at this price, but like Boss Beauties, or something else. And then it's a large allocation. In like 10 ETH into a project is a lot, but if you really believe in it, then it's also a lot easier to hold when it goes up. And like that's probably another thing to consider when you do have a larger bankroll. Or maybe it's more like how to get a larger bankroll. It's like holding onto projects when they go up 2x, 3x, 5x. It's very easy, and in many cases probably the right decision to take profits and sell and get out and put that into another project. But then you do miss out on those cases of getting a bored ape from 0.1 to 100 ETH. Like most people, understandably, sold along the way.
Right. So when you're talking about like maybe focusing on something more like only 10 projects instead of 50, that's a situation where when you do that, you're going to have more pieces from each individual project, which is going to allow you to be able to sell a little bit on the way up and more easily hold some for that moon potential that people talk about. Whereas, if you have one piece from 150 different projects. It's like, when do you sell any of them? The only way to really know when to sell any of them would be to like intensely follow all of these communities and projects, which is a very impractical thing to do.
And even then, you'd be flipping a coin most.
You're still guessing a lot. Yeah, of course. Yeah.